Discord. See, now I can take the sticky note off my iPad.
Good. Not, the most environmentally conscious use of a sticky note. But...
I know, but I really love sticky notes. I don't even know what... You know what? I have a weird addiction to office supplies.
Like legal pads?
Yeah. I don't get it. I don't know. If you can't love me for who I am.
If you don't love me at my addiction to legal pads and sticky notes, you don't deserve me at my giant Star Wars nerd.
Yeah. And
something like that.
It isn't just legal pads, it's also like really nice not nice pens, but pens that I personally like. Mm-hmm. So like there's a brand of pen that I use that I've been using for years because I just like how it writes.
Yeah. If they ever discontinue that pen, your life will be ruined.
Well, yes, and I also know for a fact that my former saxophone teacher's Perry Rask's life will be ruined too because he's the one who introduced them to me.
Are we shared in the places?
I think so, yeah. Well, shall we go?
I think we should.
Well, we're going already. You can't hear it because you're not actually here.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Jedi Enclave. I'm Daniel.
I'm Chris.
And this is the Jedi Enclave Presents You Now. This is Podcasting Podcast, your weekly podcast about Star Wars and other fandoms. We've been doing a lot of Star Wars lately. We're at a special time today because you and I have lives. And It just worked out today that we're doing 5 o'clock. So everyone's going to have to come to peace with that. All of our tens of viewers. Which, by the way,
deal with it.
we have to have a moment for a quick celebration.
Oh.
Our YouTube channel crossed the 1,000 follower threshold.
Amazing.
Which is kind of cool.
That's like 9,990 more followers than I ever expected.
Yeah. We've I don't know. YouTube's always kind of first of all, it's a cesspit in general. And it's also kind of hard to get into if you're not doing the whole Mike Zero rage bait thing. Like if we're not just bitching about black lesbians being in Star Wars, we're probably not going to get shared a whole bunch. So I'll take what I can get.
Yeah.
I mentioned the other day that I'd rather have 1,000 quality fellow Star Wars fans than 100,000 just pieces of human trash. So
certainly easier to sleep at night that way.
Yes. So today, this is almost exclusively a Star Wars show today. This will be
because there's a lot of Star Wars happening.
Yeah, this will be different next week. Because we of course will do all the Star Wars next week, but on Sunday, House of the Dragon season 2 starts, and we are going to be getting into that really hard too. But this week we got a little bit of Star Wars news. We are most of the show will be the Star Wars The Acolyte,
season 1, episode 3.
Yeah, there are a little after show, and we'll talk about everything that happened. And the way we do that is we'll do a spoiler free thing first, and then we'll do we'll warn you about spoilers, and then we'll get into spoilers and everything. If you're listening to this on the the official release of the podcast on Saturday, there'll be time codes in the description that you can check out if you want to jump around. And then thank you to our spicy friend Connor at the Star Wars Hub and Star Wars Veritas. I say spicy because he and I have a lot of fun trolling pieces of shit on social media.
Yeah.
Who are they want to bitch about all the the dumbest things about Star Wars, and we just troll them.
Star Wars is so woke now.
Yeah.
Brr, brr, brr.
He's been taking people who are super homophobic, and then using their profile picture, and then using an online Grindr message generator, and creating these these conversations. It look like it's in Grindr and everything. It's fucking hilarious. Anyway, go check him out on the Star Wars Hub and Star Wars Veritas. And then while you're here, if you could click like and subscribe and share and join us on Discord. I think we might be doing a watch party tonight, depending if there are people there. If not, I've already seen the episode, so.
Yeah.
But if you want to join us on Discord, there might be a Star Wars The Acolyte Episode 3 watch party tonight, 7 p.m. Central. And then on Sunday, right around 7:25 p.m. will be our Gungans and Dragons weekly Star Wars. Yeah. And then we after the Acolyte after show, I'm going to try to make time for this. We're going to make sure to read your comments on, because I made a post earlier today about the episode, and some people wanted to weigh in, so I'll be reading those live here in a little bit as well. Let's get into some Star Wars news, though. So there's a person involved in Star Wars right now whose name is almost as like, how do we even say it? You know how, like, when you mention Kathleen Kennedy's name and, like, the neckbeards just pop out of the woodwork and they're like, she's gonna kill Star Wars, and then, like, or she already did, or they talk about how she's been fired again or whatever. So it turns out that Leslie Headland is, like, becoming the next like Lucasfilm boogeyman.
Good, I'm proud of her.
Yeah, I'm proud of her too. Great job, Leslie. So like, I'm just saying that because anytime we're gonna mention Leslie Headland now, like, people are gonna get in the comments and be like, woke, which is fine. If a lesbian with tattoos scares you, you're probably not as manly as you think you are.
Yeah.
So anyway, since Acolyte has been in full swing, Leslie Headland has been, like, making press rounds and talking about Star Wars and stuff. And she was talking this last week about her interest in adapting a story for Kreia from Knights of the Old Republic 2 in a live action thing, which I thought was really interesting. I'm surprised, like, all the, like, the people who are like weighing into this and being really shitty, like, they don't know which button to press. It's like the one button is Kreia, which is, like, a fan favorite character in a fan favorite game. But then they're like, oh, but if I'm excited about this, they'll think I'm woke because Leslie Headland said it. So, like, you know, they don't know what to do. But I think and this is also interesting for me because, like, I don't really like Kreia very much. I like her as a character. Like, I think she's really complex and she's really, like, she's a well-written character, but I personally do not like her. She annoys me a little bit.
She is a teacher. She's like the most teacher to ever teach her.
Yeah, but she's also, like, you can tell that, like, she takes a wine glass, like an empty wine glass, and then will, like, fart in it, and then will, like, take it up to her nose and be like, oh, that smells really good. And, like, that's her entire.
She's very convinced that her viewpoint is correct.
I'm just saying, like, she samples her own product when it comes to farts. She just, I don't know, it's like any other philosophical conversation. Like, I don't know if you argue philosophy with people, but some people are just, like, so into the sound of their own voice, and I can get like this a little bit too, I realize. And Kreia is like that freshman philosophy major in college who just learned about you know, social Marxism the week before or something, and it's just, like, now talking to everyone about it. Anyway, I'd watch it. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, based on what we've seen at The Acolyte, Leslie Headland clearly knows her Star Wars. She knows how to make a good show, and she would be working with really interesting source material, so I'd be down.
Who would you cast as Kreia?
Ooh, Judi Dench, maybe?
I think Judi Dench is maybe too old. I guess Kreia is pretty fucking old. I was thinking there's a who is in that Taylor Sheridan Yellowstone spinoff with Harrison Ford. I should know her name. Hold on a second. Taylor Sheridan. It's 19 something. 1940 something, 1920 something, 1923.
Okay.
Cast. It's Helen. It's I almost just had her name right at the tip of my tongue. It's Helen something. You know what? Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren. Okay.
I think she would make a really good Kreia. Like, if you go and Google Helen Mirren, I think she's got the face for it. and she's got like the attitude for it too.
Yeah.
All right, shall we keep moving on?
I think we should.
So we got a good look at who the Star Wars The Acolyte, or not Star Wars The Acolyte, Star Wars Andor Season 2 writers are going to be. So like we know that Tony Gilroy is still like involved in it a whole bunch. He's the showrunner for the series. But they've
also know the format of this. So we've known for a while that it's going to be like 12 episodes, 4 3-episode arcs, each of which is like a year or separated by a year in the life of Cassian Andor.
Yeah. So
they divided it up so that one writer gets 3 episodes, another writer gets 3 episodes, so on and so forth.
That is pretty similar to how they did it in season 1. I thought the format for Andor season 1 worked really well, and it was it was one of those things where like it was way different than what we're used to seeing in Star Wars, but was so functional and like such high quality that you couldn't help but love it.
It was phenomenal in every way.
Yeah. Also on this list of directors, Beau Willimon, Dan Gilroy, Tom Bissell are all involved, and like as we know that like this show was delayed a whole bunch because of all the strikes and stuff, but it looks like we are going to be seeing it by the end of the year, which is really exciting. Yeah. Let's talk about so this next thing is going to be a minefield a little bit, and it's going to springboard us into our Mike Zero Lie of the Week segment.
Oh, good.
But this is one of those things where you have to be really fair about the argument, because it's about the viewership for Star Wars The Acolyte on Disney Plus, and it is naive, or maybe perhaps even dishonest, to say that a corporation like Disney wouldn't have a reason to manipulate numbers like this, because they absolutely do.
Yeah.
And this is not just a Disney thing. This is a Netflix thing. Like anyone with a streaming services are very weird where it comes to revenue, because like for example, Netflix is like, I don't know, $10 gazillion in debt. But like they're still really successful because they've been growing subscribers, which like it counts for something as well. So it's hard to tell like when a corporation's like, oh well, we had this many viewers. Yeah, like you have to read into it a little bit more. All right, so that's kind of the preamble I'm giving this.
They have to. You have to read how they define viewer and what a view is, because every streaming service defines those differently. Yeah.
So it turns out that The Acolyte garnered 4.8 million views for its 2-episode premiere within the first 24 hours. And this is where some of their word, like some of their language is a little dishonest, because they're like, oh, it's the biggest premiere on the platform for 2024. And they put that in like little letters, right? It's like in the fine print.
Yeah. So it also ended up getting 11.1 million over the first 5 days, which is, in most objective counts, a lot of people. But Ahsoka's premiere over the same time period got 14 million.
Right. When you add those together, the 11 million and then the 24 hours number, they're about comparable.
Yeah, they're within the same neighborhood.
Right, which I think is what more or less what you would expect for something like this.
I would honestly expect the Ahsoka numbers to be a little bit bigger, because that is sort of the culmination of years and years of cartoon arcs that
a fan favorite character. Yeah, sure. Yeah, yes. There are other things to consider as well with that. There's a lot. Like I said, streaming services are very strange, and like how all of that shit breaks down, because Disney only gives you the metrics they want you to see for this, right? And by the way, for any of you dumbasses in our comments who are like, oh, you guys are just Disney shills, I want you to remember that when it comes to somewhere where it is reasonable and responsible to accuse Disney of doing something shitty, we do it, right? And this is one of those things where they're a corporation. They will lie about everything they are legally allowed to lie about. if it will make them money, right?
Mhm.
And so with that in mind, it's really, really hard to know how this stacks up with other Star Wars properties because of how they met. Like,
Yeah. So Disney's definition of a view is how many minutes someone watched. Like if an episode is 40 minutes long, if someone watched 40 minutes, that's a view. If someone watched 20 minutes, that's half a view.
yeah,
And they just aggregate all those numbers together, and that's how they get their final total.
yeah, and then there's like a rewatch is also, I think, like a view as well. So
Yeah, because that would just be like 80 minutes
yeah.
of watching. So that's 2 views.
Right. So it's hard to tell just based on that how well it's doing. I will say this, and maybe this will kind of springboard us into the next thing. I know that some folks online are very excited to point out the Rotten Tomatoes user reviews for Star Wars The Acolyte as proof that it's some like huge failed venture, when I do not get that. I don't get that sense on social media. And like, remember that the sample size is obviously limited. I'm one person, and I've not reviewed millions and millions of people's comments, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will say that based on what I've seen, the folks that are shitting on Acolyte are very loud in the comments, but in most official places where like posts are made about the Acolyte, the positive interactions seem to outweigh the negative ones by a lot. And we're going to get into this into our Mike Zero Lie of the Week thing. But it turns out that the Rotten Tomatoes user score is very dishonest in so many different ways that it is not an accurate snapshot of what people think about it or how many people are watching it, right? So first of all, stop doing that. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes, you should probably not pay attention to either of those scores for various reasons. And like I pointed this out to a couple of people who are it seems like all the people I see making these arguments, when you go and visit their social media profile, none of the stuff they post is about Star Wars. It's all about right-wing politics. And I'm not sure that they're actually even Star Wars fans. I don't think that they actually like, and that isn't like a no true Scotsman thing. Like, I don't think that they actually watch Star Wars. I think that they're plugged into like,
but they've just latched onto it for the culture war,
right? So, and then they go to the they go to the comments and they shit on everything.
It's worth pointing out just like a couple of the flaws with the Rotten Tomatoes audience score. Like, number one is they will let you post a review or score something before it's even come out.
Right.
So if people hate something, they can go to it before anyone's even seen it and just downvote it to hell.
Yeah.
They're like, you don't have to actually write a review when you give a score.
Right.
You can just vote it 1 and move on with your life. Whereas I think that Reddit thread you linked me to.
I was about to ask you. You must have read that Reddit thread, right?
A little bit of it, yeah. Like, if you look at the people who actually take the time to write something out, they're pretty much all positive.
Yeah. So let's get into that. By the way, so we're going to get into our next segment, the Mike Zero Lie of the Week, where this week So I try not to do one of these every week because
you don't want to run the joke into the ground.
Yeah, and it's just like there's so much of this bullshit that like we could do an entire channel about misinformation and bad faith arguments in the Star Wars community, and it just like I'm not that particularly interested in it, and sometimes it's just kind of like screaming into the void anyway, because the people who are making these bad faith arguments or spreading this misinformation can't be reasoned with, so it's like I can't change their minds. So, like, my best hope for a segment like this is that someone reasonable who's on the fence will watch this and I convince them, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. Because there are some people who they will never be convinced. It doesn't matter what proof you show them. They will never be convinced. But we're going going to take just a quick couple of minutes to tackle some bad faith arguments and misinformation surrounding Star Wars The Acolyte this week, right? And so I'm going to read to you just a few random ones that I've seen floating around quite a bit. And
Okay.
The first one is that in a press interview, Charlie Barnett, who plays Yord, quoted something about Anakin Skywalker destroying the Death Star, which we know is not factually correct in Star Wars. That's not what happened. And it seems like the rage bait crowd has been instructed to use this as proof.
Oh, these actors don't even know anything about Star Wars.
Which let's be the most generous toward that argument that we can. Let's pretend like Charlie Barnett has never seen a single Star Wars movie, right?
Okay.
Doesn't matter, because Yord is a fictional character and Charlie Barnett is a real life person, and they are not the same thing. Charlie Barnett is an actor, and he does not need to be an expert. He doesn't even need to have seen a Star Wars movie to play the part well, right? And it's weird that like they'll take any small. It's a bad faith argument, right? There aren't any huge systemic issues to point to in the show, and so this is what we get, right? Including the next thing, the fact that in the first episode of Star Wars The Acolyte, there's a sequence where a character gets out on the hull of the ship and there's a fire. And this is also being used as proof that it's some huge inaccurate thing, and it means that the show is bad.
The physics in Star Wars has never made sense.
Yeah.
The very existence of hyperspace travel flies in the face of all physics. Lightsabers don't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah.
You can point to any piece of technology in Star Wars, and there is a physical argument for why it would not work in the real world. We don't care about any of that because it makes for a good story.
Yeah, we suspend our belief because it's cool, right?
Yeah.
And so like I posted on our social media platforms today a bunch of different instances in Star Wars in the original trilogy and a couple in the prequel trilogy where there's fire and space all over the fucking place, right? And like there are explosions. Obviously my favorite one I think is there's a moment where in Return of the Jedi when Vader's Super Star Destroyer crashes into the Death Star. Mm-hmm. And before that explosion, it's like one of the prop guys just took a Bic lighter and set the bridge of the model on fire, and it's just like this pilot light like fire like coming off of it, and then it crashes and everything. There are a bunch of other examples as well, and this is another one of those bad faith arguments where like that this isn't that big of a problem. You're being intellectually dishonest and you're making a bad faith argument because you don't have anything else. At least you're not intelligent enough to offer any valid criticism, which there are valid criticisms in the show because no visual media is perfect, right? So like we've had gripes about the show. I had some gripes about this week's episode. None of them were fatal to whether or not I liked it or not, but this is what we get. We talked about the Rotten Tomatoes audience score a little bit. I did point out to a couple of people that like if you're going to froth at the mouth about the audience score being super accurate because it supports your narrative, you have to admit that The Marvels was an amazing movie because the audience score for The Marvels is really like quite high. And that is a big problem for this crowd because The Marvels isn't good to them because it has a largely female cast. It's quote unquote woke or whatever. And so they're immediately like, oh, well, that one doesn't count because their immediate thing is to default to a special pleading fallacy, right?
Mm-hmm. The audience is always right when they agree with me. When they don't agree with me, they're wrong.
Yeah, they're wrong. Yeah. Amanda Stenberg, there's this thing about an interview that Amanda Stenberg did. So this is what the rage bait creators want you to hear. Okay, Star Wars The Acolyte. This is what Amanda Stenberg said from their point of view. This is what they want you to believe happened. That Amanda Stenberg said Star Wars The Acolyte is going to make white men cry. Now, what actually happened is that Amanda Stenberg did an interview with Trevor Noah in 2018 to promote a project she was working on called The Hate You Give. and said that they wanted it to make white people cry as a show of empathy for like this like really bad thing that happened.
Remind me, was Acolyte even announced back in 2018?
I do not think that it was. It may have been. I can't really remember. But that, like, this is one of those things where, like, you know, Star Wars Theory and Mike Zero will be like, oh, she said that Star Wars was made to make white people cry. And it's like, you know that's not what she said. You're lying. That's dishonest. You're knowingly lying about this because it gets you clicks, right? It gets everyone all fucking crazy, and they click on your video and you make money because that's literally the only thing that matters to these assholes. The last thing I'll point out is that there was a fake news post from IGN with a picture of Kathleen Kennedy and everything else that said Star Wars to rename light side and dark side due to racially insensitive wording. And it's an altered screenshot. It's not an article that exists from IGN. It was never published on IGN. The thumbnail doesn't exist.
Of course.
Yeah, so the person that made this knew they were lying, and they were doing it. The purpose of it was to spread misinformation. So
to make people angry.
Right. There's a whole thing that I could preach for an hour about media literacy and the fact that really when you see something online, your first instinct should be to not believe it, and then look for evidence, look for a reason to believe it, right? Instead of believing it and then waiting for a reason not to believe it. But
you could do that, but it's more fun to talk about Star Wars for the next hour instead.
Right. So anyway, it's like, you know, if you're watching this, if you're a part of our audience that gets this far into our podcast, it's likely you probably don't need these tools, right? You probably already have them.
You're smarter than the average bear.
Yeah, because it's like if you're not one of the guys who's busy in the comments bitching about how woke everything is, like if you're still with me, if you're still following me through this thread, you probably understand media literacy a little bit. You probably understand the financial motivations for people like Mike Zero and Star Wars Theory to lie about things or to
everybody on the internet is trying to sell something,
right?
And if you can't tell what they're trying to sell, what they're selling is you.
Yeah,
Right. Your information or your ad views or whatever.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. That's our Mike Zero lie of the week. You've been properly prepared this week, and if there's enough of this shit that becomes big enough for me to notice, we'll keep doing it. Otherwise, All right. Now
let's talk about video games.
Oh yeah. Let's do this real quick. I'm going to do a quick run through this because it's not.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we get into our thing here, but so we got what was it? Get like Game Fest, I think. There was a
so Summer Games Fest was last weekend / this past week-ish. And there were, of course, multiple shows of the main show where they showed off a whole bunch of other stuff, and then individual developer and company shows, including Ubisoft, who put on their own show, including a 10-minute look into Star Wars Outlaws.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like a neat gameplay demo. It looked cool. I mean, you should go watch the video. We're not going to go through it frame by frame, but they showed a lot of the exploration mechanics and some of the world and.
You land on Mos Eisley and you have this mission to go find this expert who can teach you how to shoot better and blah,
right.
blah.
The thing that troubles me about this is that we found out, I think today or yesterday, that the length of the game is around 30 hours, which for an open world game is very anemic.
Yeah. Do you know if that length is like just mainlining the main story?
Just the main story. Just it's not you've done all the exploration, you've done all of the side quests and everything. To put it into perspective, like Red Dead Redemption 2, which I consider to be the best open world game ever made, was about 60 hours, like minimum. I read a comment from someone who said they were only in chapter 4 and were already up to 50 hours. And then if you were to explore all of the game, it's around 200 hours, right? Mm-hmm. So this length is more comparable to Hogwarts Legacy, which was also, in my opinion, after I finished playing it, was fairly anemic, and I felt could have been a lot bigger and could have been longer. So. But I mean, so like what they say is, oh well, we don't want to make it so big that the details get lost, or we give you a bunch of something that isn't very good instead of giving you a little less of something that's amazing. And that's a valid point if that is true, right? So if we get Star Wars Outlaws and it's 30 hours of the best fucking game I've ever played in my life, then good for them. That's great, right? But if it's 30 hours of we had to push out a AAA game to make some money, this is what you get, then, first of all, I won't be surprised because that's how the gaming industry works.
Ubisoft specifically, in many cases.
Right. So, but, aside from it being $100 fucking whatever dollars to get,
I have been on the train that games should be smaller, and like that, so that companies don't have to treat their employees like shit just to put the game out on time. If the game is good, then like it comes down to pacing, really. Like if those 30 hours are engaging and I'm on the edge of my seat and I keep wanting to find out what's going on next, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I'm going to reset something here real quick, but I will say, I'll read. This is live, by the way. We'll read some comments as they come in. Casey says, ask Harrison Ford, who blew up the Trade Federation battleship in Phantom Menace. That's
Good
true.
Point. I was going to say either Harrison Ford or George Lucas probably don't know very much about Star Wars.
I imagine that George Lucas probably does know, because he at least wrote that story. I would hope, because like he's more sketchy on some of the original trilogy stuff because some of it he didn't write, and so like you could ask Harrison Ford probably a trivia question about anything, and not only, well, he would never get the answer wrong because I don't think he'd ever answer it. He would just say,
tell you to get the fuck out of my house. I need to go fly my plane.
Yeah, he'd be like, I don't fucking know. Why are you asking me about this? I'm not actually Han Solo. I don't know how to tell you this. I'm not literally Han Solo. Leave me the fuck alone. I'm calling the police. Get out of my house.
I feel like we've had this discussion about Billy D. Williams before, but
yeah, I think they're all. I think like out of the original trilogy cast, like Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher were the best sports. For fans, like because I think that they love the fans a whole bunch, and they wanted to be a part of it, and
I feel like Mark Hamill's just actually a nerd.
I think he is too. Yeah, sure.
Just based on the fact that he voiced the Joker in basically every animated adaptation that was good.
Yeah, I think that Carrie loved people so much that she recognized how much of a I guess a cultural touchstone she'd become, that she just embraced it and was like, you know what, you guys are a weird fucking bunch of nerds, but you're my weird fucking bunch of nerds. And it always felt kind of nice. And Harrison Ford's just like, you guys are nerds, leave me the fuck alone, please. So Casey Playthrough says, hey, new to the stream, what do you think of Acolyte so far and the rating bombing? Alec Guinness was just confused. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that about Alec Guinness, he didn't want to do Star Wars at first, but then he was like, oh, but maybe I could buy a house. So
yeah, like as long as the check clears, I'm in.
But when he got on set, despite the fact that he hated the script, he hated the whole idea, he thought it was stupid, when he was on set, he was an absolute gentleman and was like the group's morale. Yeah, he was responsible for everyone's morale. And
long days in the middle of the fucking
in Tunisia, the
Sahara Desert.
And I have always respected that about him because he's British. That's what fucking British people do.
Stiff upper lip.
Yeah. I've liked Acolyte so far. And we talked about the rating bombings a little bit earlier in this show. So when the official podcast drops on Saturday, there'll be time codes in the description. You can check that out. So speaking of Star Wars The Acolyte, though, season 1, episode 3 happened last night. Episode called Destiny. We are going to start out with some spoiler-free thoughts, and then you will be well warned if you've not seen it when we're going to start talking spoilers. So keep that in mind. Keep your ears out. This one was directed by a South Korean American who just goes by a one-name moniker called Kagunada.
Okay.
I looked into some of his stuff. Like he doesn't have a bunch of stuff Like, he doesn't have a huge filmography, but he seems like a really interesting guy.
Yeah.
So let me give you some spoiler-free thoughts on this one.
Okay.
This was a big departure from the story so far.
Yes.
And it's all backstory. And I'm not sure if I like having an entire episode for backstory or if I like it sprinkled through, like, as we go. Because, like, it would have been cool to see the present day plot move forward a little bit more. It didn't at all.
I'm on the edge of my seat. What happens to Kelnaka, right?
Right. Yeah. Which, by the way, did you see they did a little teaser for next week? Did you see any of that?
I don't think so.
There's a shot of Kelnaka fucking jumping through the air with a fucking lightsaber, like ready to, and he looks like he's attacking Torben.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, like, I would very much like to see a full-grown Wookiee go berserk on someone. I think that'd be so fucking cool. But like I said, I don't know which one of those I would pick if you made me, because it was nice to have an uninterrupted story, though.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how I feel about how that was organized yet. I'll come back. Look, ask me again at the end of the season. I'll tell you.
I think it ultimately comes down to how, like you said, how the overarching story works, but how the story in those particular episodes works. Because a lot of time when you have those interweaving stories of separated by multiple years, but from the audience's perspective happening contemporaneously, one of them informs the other. Like, you see an event in the past and then someone says something in the future and the audience is like, oh wow, based on blah, 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 there's this fun interaction. Whereas with this, I think they were more interested in sort of contextualizing what we already know and giving us more information for what's going to come after.
You know the feeling that I have about why it was organized the way it was?
Why is that?
I think we're going to find out that there are big parts of this episode that were from an unreliable narrator. And that things that we see didn't happen the way that the point of view sees it.
I like that idea.
Yeah, and we'll get more into that when we get there, because we're still in our spoiler free. I'm not a huge fan of the actors that play the kid actors that played the twins. And here's
I thought they did okay. I thought the actor who played May was a little bit better than the one playing Osha, but
it could be so, like, here's the thing. I tend to give child actors leeway anyway, because
because they're kids, they don't know anything.
Right. It's like one or two things. It's either they're amazing, like Stranger Things, or there's a Netflix version, like, reboot of Lost in Space that as a show isn't great, but features a kid actor named Maxwell Jenkins that is riveting to watch. He's so fucking good, and is the reason that I like watch all 3 seasons of it or whatever. Like, he's so good. Or so, like, they're either amazing like that, or they're just like they're fine, right?
Yeah.
And it's because they're kids. They don't have a body of experience to pull on, and the ones that are, like, amazing are just really good at intuiting how adults act, and they're just kind of mimicking, but they still don't understand it, So it's like I wasn't a huge fan of the performance, but at the end of the day, I'm like, it's a fucking kid. Who the fuck cares, right?
It served the purpose.
Yeah. Building out the lore of the Force was interesting. There's a lot of that stuff we're going to get into, and it looks like they might be building a huge fucking connection to Darth Plagueis. And I'm excited to see where that goes. I thought the music was amazing. I thought it was so good.
Yep.
I liked.
I sat there and watched the credits for a few minutes
just to listen. I did the same thing. Yeah, I did the same thing. So seeing the Jedi from a different perspective was
I have
cool.
thoughts about the Jedi when we get to spoilers.
Yeah, and I said this online earlier today to one of our followers. The idea of Jedi taking children away from their parents has never sat well with me. Before this, like, after the prequels were finished and everything, it's not. It helps that. So, I'm an atheist, right? So the idea of a let's call it what a religious institution,
Okay.
taking children away from their parents and indoctrinating them is like for like a huge big like fucking like red flag for me, right?
Yeah.
That being said, I fucking love the Jedi. You know why?
Because they're cool.
Because they have fucking lightsabers and they do flips,
Yeah.
and I think that's fucking cool. Also, my favorite character in the entire franchise is a Jedi. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing too. So like the rage bait machine, which is what we're just gonna call like the Mike Zero in the Star Wars series of the world.
Yeah.
They've been saying all week, especially the ones that like saw the episode early, that this episode commits a crime so egregious that it was going to absolutely ruin Star Wars. And like maybe that was in a post-credit scene that I didn't see, but like I didn't see anything that was that offensive. Even the stuff that you would expect some of the idiots to bitch about, I didn't even think were really that in your face anyway.
I think I know exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah, I think I do too. Yeah, but it's just like this thing about how it was like so aggressive, it's going to destroy it. Everyone's going to implode, and everyone was going to abandon Star Wars. And then I don't think that ended up being true. And I like the stuff that that's in there. I appreciated the representation, and at the end of the day, I was like, guys, this is what happens when you cry wolf every fucking time. Is everyone's like, you're a fucking idiot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then my last spoiler-free thought was Master Saul is a beautiful being, and I love him. And nothing better happened to him, or I will fucking riot. I swear to God.
I think he is a flawed individual who is doing his best.
Sure.
Like just in everything he comes to, he is doing his best. What he understands to be the best for everyone involved.
Yeah, this will mean something more when we get to it in the story. I think that there are things that Saul didn't know.
I think that's entirely possible.
I think there's a part of what happens that he wasn't in the room when it happens, and we'll talk about it after. Mm-hmm. So let's get into the story a little bit. So this show just came out last night. If you're watching this live, it just came out last night. If you've not had the chance to see it yet, we're gonna spoil like every scene. So if you want to hear our humorous fucking
irreverent and vulgar recap of this.
Like if that's good enough for you, then fine. But if you want to see it first, though, I don't blame you. Go and watch it. Come back for when we drop this on Saturday. But so I'm giving you a very thorough spoiler warning. If you're here watching, we're gonna spoil it. If you're the kind of person that doesn't like that, please fuck off. Respectfully fuck off.
Respectfully fuck off.
Also, before we get into this, KZ playthrough says, I feel like we are so well prepared for the rest of the show now, though. I agree with that. And I don't think we're obviously not done with the flashbacks either.
No, and there's a lot to still get into, I think. A ton of mysteries still.
100% agree the POV was strange at times. And then Ihadga says, great chat as usual. Thank you.
Oh.
Casey says, I reckon May did something to instigate fighting between. Okay, we'll get into that when it's time.
Yeah.
It'll be very Last Jedi seeing a different POV of the same events. The unreliable narrative. That's absolutely true. I'll catch the rest of the episode when I get home after daughter swimming practice. May the force be with you. May the force be with you. Okay, so we open up May and Osha, kid May and Osha, who is who we stick with through the whole story, right? Mm-hmm. Adult May and Osha, who is played by the same person, gets a break. We open up on Brendock, and there's this cool fucking camera pan past a structure that to me looked just like the Jedi Seeing Stone on Tython, and I swear to God, Chris, like the music starts with this horn solo that like the first several notes sounded like the Force theme.
Yeah.
And then it kind of like goes off into something else. I'm a professional musician who has conducted orchestras. I feel like I'm a bit of an expert. Having conducted the music of John Williams a whole bunch, I feel like I'm a bit of an expert where this is concerned. I'm telling you, it was like the beginning of the Force theme.
It was very John Williams.
Yes. Which is, you can never go wrong, doing the John Williams thing. So they're under a big yellow tree, which we find out is the Bunta tree, which if you've been watching the show, was used to make a poison in episode 2.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And they talk about how dangerous it is. They're like, you can make a poison to kill a Jedi later on in your life if you wanted to. And
they also have these little butterfly things.
Yeah.
that
I have in my notes. I have them as space butterflies.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that they look like they're red and blue. It's a motif because like this planet has 2 moons.
2 moons, yeah, and they have the kind of blue and red arcs, very similar to the logo for the show.
Right? Yeah, it's a kind of a consistent motif they've been playing with, which also like correlates to the blue and red lightsabers, right? So like Osha is hanging out. She like uses the Force to like freeze it in place and kind of look at it, and then like May shows up and she's like, "Oh, I can use the Force too, but I'll just fucking torture it." And Osha's like, "Why are you always such an asshole? Like, why are you always like this?" Yeah. So it turns out that like they're about to do a ceremony called the Ascension. Osha isn't so crazy about it, right?
May is all gung ho, like, come on, we should do this. We can be awesome.
So not only is May gung ho about it, but she's like personally offended that Osha doesn't want to do it.
Yeah.
But they do their like their little rhyme thing, right?
Yeah.
1 and 2 and skip around and all that other bullshit. So
by the way, that's a consistent theme throughout the episode of May is the twin who wants to do everything with her other twin, and Osha's the twin who wants to be her own person.
She's like, you're smothering me a little bit.
Making it weird.
I'll call you. Don't call me, please. Yeah. So we meet a new character, Mother Coral, who, by the way, is okay. There are 2 major subsets of the Zabrak race. There's like the Darth Maul, Dathomirian Zabraks, and there's the Iridonian.
I think that's right.
Zabraks that I'd have to look that up. It's something like that.
That don't have the dramatic tattoos. They have more understated stuff going on.
Right. Also, so like the Dathomirian, Darth Maul-y Zabraks, the females they're not horny. Well, I'm sure they are, like, but
they don't have horns.
Yeah, they don't have horns, but like the Iridonian Zabraks, the females can have horns. They're allowed to be horny. And so like a good example is Eth Koth on the Jedi Council in episode 2 and 3. He might be in episode 1. I can't remember. He's an Iridonian Zabrak. Darth Maul, Savage Opress. Which every time I say that name, I'm like, God, that's such a stupid fucking name. They're like the Dathomirian Darth Maul, you know.
Anyway, the point is, Mother, what's her name, is Iridonian.
Yeah, and she like, so if the girls have 2 moms, one of the moms is a cool mom and one of the mom isn't a cool mom. Mother Coral is the not cool mom, right? Yeah. So she shows up and yells at him because they're like outside of the fortress where it's like
you're
not
supposed
safe.
To be outside. It's dangerous.
Yeah, she's like, go to your fucking room. And as they're all like running off, like Jedi Master Saul like comes from behind a tree and is like, where are they going?
He's sneaking around.
Yeah. Yeah, like sneaky little music and like, yeah. So they get back to the compound, and like the girls just want to like they want spice creams or whatever.
Yeah, I want a cookie.
And
another Coral's like, no, fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you. You can't. Yeah. And then we meet Mother Anastasia, who comes out and she's the cool mom. And she's like, you can have as much candy as you want. Like,
absolutely have those cookies.
She's the mom where when you're a kid and you know you want to do something and one parent is going to say no and one parent's going to say yes, you go ask the parent that says yes, and then you go to the other one and you're like, oh, well, Mother Anastasia said yes, right? That's the whole thing that's happening here. Yeah. So she like shoves the cookies in their mouth and she's like, okay, go get ready for class because we're gonna have a training session. Yeah. So Anastasia and Coral talk, and so first of all, it's pretty apparent that I think this reads as romantic.
Yes,
the two of them.
That is how I interpret it.
Yeah, though a reminder that in a galaxy with hundreds of thousands of species with different customs and stuff, that like maybe this doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, but I'm pretty sure that it is. So they have a little talk. So there's a group, they know about the Jedi. Like they know that the Jedi are there. They know that they're close, and they clearly do not want them in their fucking business, right? Yeah. And Anastasia does she does a little like chin tickle, like a little romantic chin tickle and shit, and she's like, oh, you worry so much, you know. And so Coral is a little pissed that Anastasia like spoils the girls, and she's like, "Look, like spare the rod. You need to beat our fucking kids, because otherwise they're like they're gonna end up being real spoiled." And
it's a rough galaxy out
yeah.
there. You know, they gotta learn to take care of themselves.
Yeah. Which, by the way, don't beat your kids. That's if you can't solve. I say this as a professional.
If you can't outthink your child
without hitting them, yeah, you're an idiot.
That says more about you than
it means your kid's smarter than you. That's fucking embarrassing. Yeah. All right, so Mother Anastasia does a TED Talk on the Thread, which is their version of like the Force.
Yeah,
and the girls are not paying it. Well, okay, so May is paying attention. Osha is not paying attention at all, right? And May's real offended by it, and I swear to God, I've had moments of like this with my brother where like you're supposed to be being good, but then you just start punching each other.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that happens organically, but it just does. Like things just lead to a fist fight, right? Yeah. And that's kind of like what happened. They're like smacking each other, and she's like, "Mom, she's looking at me," and like and she, like Mother Anastasia.
Mother Anastasia is like, "This is the Thread. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I can use it to push this witch around. But if there's two of them, it's slightly harder for me to push."
Yeah. Which by the way is a little thing that keeps coming back in her lesson about like the power of one and the power of two and all this other bullshit. And then she says at the ceremony tonight, you'll experience the power of many. And we'll all do a fucking song and dance, and it'll be really neat.
It'd be great.
So the girls' fight like kind of boils over, and Coral. Like looks at Mother Anastasia and is like, you need to beat our fucking kids. Remember when we had that fucking discussion? And so Mother Anastasia is like, okay, fine, we'll try a little bit of physical violence. And she's like, she tries to make it into a lesson about fighting. She's like, your enemies won't fucking warn you when they attack. Never lower your defenses, and like
constant vigilance.
Yeah, right. Oh, you are dipping toes in different franchises. And like pushes them over with the Force or the Thread. Sorry.
The Thread.
And there are, like, by the way, she does this right in front of a set of stairs, like concrete stairs. Like, these kids easily could have, like, cracked their fucking melons open on these stairs. And they get up, they brush themselves off, and May is like, okay, I want you to block me. And, like, May is able to do it, and Osha isn't able to do it so well. And Coral is like, God damn it, you're such a disappointment, fucking Osha. Yeah. And then they're sent to their rooms. So Osha tells Mother Anastasia, they have a conversation later. She's like, I don't want to be a witch for a variety of reasons. And May is like, being a witch is like the coolest fucking thing in the world. Why would you ever not want to be a witch? And then Osha's like, shut the fuck up, May. I wasn't talking to you. Like, I'm talking to Mom. So Mother Anastasia is like, look, you're probably a little afraid. You shouldn't be afraid. Like, this is the thing. The galaxy doesn't welcome women like us because we're special. And it turns out that the two of you are very special, right? And I want you to stay special, which to me immediately reads really manipulative.
A little bit, yeah.
And I know that we're going to shit on the Jedi a lot in this episode, but there's plenty of shitting to be done on Mother Anastasia as well. Okay. So the girls are getting ready for this. They got like their two people, and they're like tying their locks and shit. And they start off talking about like, okay, so like Osha is like sketching in her sketchbook and shit, and they're talking about how much fucking spice cream they're gonna devour after the thing. And then like May gets real pissed off that Osha is like drawing shit in her book but not showing her.
Yeah.
And she's like, here, I share everything with you, and why won't you share it with me? And she's like, I just don't like you very much. You're just kind of an asshole. Like we don't have to share everything. Like, for fuck's sake. And she's like, I want to have my own things. And May's like, well, that's fucking stupid. Like,
I want you to have everything I have.
Yeah, we should all have the same number of things. The same exact things, in fact.
Yeah, comrade.
Yeah, right. Oh God, May's a socialist. So, Osha says, you're only saying that because we're the only children here. At some point during this conversation, by the way, like, both of the adults doing their hair look at each other like, oh my fucking God.
This is really fucking awkward.
Yeah. So basically, Osha kind of wonders what's out in the galaxy, and May doesn't give a fuck what's out there.
Everything I need is right here.
Right.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah. And you have like just two entirely fundamental differences in outlook and worldview, right? So Mother Anastasia and the witches, they start the ascension ceremony. It's outside. It's in front of a hole in the ground, which reminds me a little bit of like the dark side whole vagina thing on Octo
Very
from Last
much,
Jedi. Yeah.
This entire scene, by the way, is breathtaking.
It's
they
beautiful.
Do some really cool
Yeah.
choreography and some understated visual effects and this like diegenic music where they're singing this song, and it's really cool.
I found the chanting and the singing to be a little cringy.
It's on the nose, to be sure.
Yeah.
But it makes sense in the context.
It didn't like ruin it for me. It's not like I was covering my face. I'm like, no, don't chant.
Yeah.
Like it was fine. And also I'm not sure that you could have a group of witches chanting in any situation and not have it be kind of weird anyway. So it's like, whatever, that's fine. The moons are like doing an eclipse thing too, where they're lined up and shit. So Mother Anastasia is like on her soapbox, like, you know, we were on the brink of extinction and we were blessed with the miracle of life, and like there's like that one witch in the back who's just maniacally laughing like at everything, and like they're like, calm down, Cindy, Jesus fuck. And which, by the way, do you think that they did like a little rehearsal of this where they're like, oh, we're gonna chant and it's in B flat minor, and you bitches, I swear to God, if you don't stay on pitch, I'm gonna literally cut one of you. And like,
maybe
do the witches have a choir director?
I think so.
I would like to think that they do. It's probably that old bitch we meet later.
Yeah.
So, after some chanting and singing, May takes her vow, which pretty much is like, Mother Anastasia is like, when I fucking die, you're gonna take over and keep our secrets. And May's like,
it's like, fuck yes.
Yeah, I love secrets. Let's fucking do it. So Mother Anastasia gives her a Force tattoo on the fucking forehead. And
it's scarification that happens to be colored through the Force or something, I guess. And it's the exact same pattern that Anastasia has in the middle of her forehead, and
just a different place.
Yeah, I'll get into the other point later.
Okay. So Osha goes to take her vow, and she asks her the same question, and she's like, so when I fucking die, are you gonna take over and all my secrets? And she's like, yes,
I guess.
Yeah, like her she's supposed to say I do, but it's definitely a question. It is not a declarative statement.
Do?
And then Mother Anastasia is like, you know what, I'll take it. That's
good enough.
Good enough for me. So before she can do the tattoo thing, a witch runs up with fucking urgent news. She's like, the Jedi are here, and they picked the lock on the front door, and they're coming in. They'll be here any minute. And so they're like, oh shit, hide the kids.
Okay. Hide the kids. Stop singing.
Yeah.
We're all just hanging out here.
Yeah. Like a group of witches grab their weapons, like they're ready to throw down. And Mother Anastasia is like, no. Okay, listen.
No.
Maybe you've never seen a Jedi before, but they definitely have lightsabers, and you have a metal fucking axe. Like, this is not going to go well. So just
you have a bow and arrow.
Yeah,
and
right.
They have a lightsaber.
Yeah, it's you have no idea to what extent you're bringing a bow and arrow to a fucking nuclear bomb fight, right? Yeah. So just calm the fuck down. No violence. So Master Indara, who we meet in episode 1, played by the brilliant Carrie-Anne Moss, walks in with her Padawan, little baby Tommen, who is, I'm calling him Tommen. I don't know him as anything else. I just can't fucking help it. But he doesn't have the fucking beard and everything, which is nice because
he's a little baby. He's 16 years younger.
Also, that beard looked real fucking stupid. Like, it was clearly a fake beard, and I hated it.
It was weird.
Yeah. Also, I love Dean Charles Chapman, and I'm just glad I get to see his actual face. Saul is there. Is he a master at this point, or?
I don't think so.
Maybe he's just a knight.
I think that's more likely.
Yeah, and fucking Kelnaka. So they walk in, right? And Master Indara is like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I had
interrupting something.
I had no idea this planet was inhabited." And Mother Anastasia is like, "Yeah, that's a load of bullshit." Like,
the all-knowing Jedi didn't know that there were people here.
Yeah. And so the girls are like hiding behind the witches, by the way, right? And Osha is very interested in the Jedi because she sees Saul's lightsaber. She sees on his belt buckle, he's got like the Jedi Order crest and everything.
Yep.
And May is like, they're not that cool, Osha. Calm the fuck down.
Yeah. Besides, we have to stay hidden.
Yeah. So Master Endara is like, okay, look, here's the deal. Yes, we are lying. We knew you were here. You're training kids here. And Republic law clearly states that forced homeschooling isn't cool. And sorry, that's illegal. You can't do that. And Mother NSA is like, there aren't any fucking kids here. And then Kelnock is like, I see one standing right there. Like, it's behind that other, like, slightly larger human.
So Mother Anastasia says Brendock is not the Republic. Mother
Right,
Coral
yeah.
says there aren't any kids here.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, the sheer fucking audacity of the Jedi to come to a planet that's not even in the Republic
Right.
and assert Republic law stands here. That's like...
It's pretty gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
leaving aside the fact that they're there to kidnap literal children, take them away from their family, and go indoctrinate them.
Yeah. So they're like, yeah, there are no kids here. And Kelnaka is like, first of all, I smell very well, and I smell the kids, but also they're in plain sight. They're like they're standing right there. So can we just cut the shit? And so Saul is like, you know what? Let me do the nice guy thing. So he's very he calls Osha out first. He's very kind to them, and he introduces himself. I swear to God, Saul is such a fucking sweetheart. I love him, right? And
he is the good cop in every situation.
Yes. So they both come out, and he's like kind of talking to them, and one of the Jedi is like, "Where's the father?" And Mother NSA is like, "There was no father." And I was like, "Oh shit!"
Oh.
So we're going there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there were rumors or rage bait earlier this week about how there were, lesbian witches making Force babies, and apparently that's true.
Right.
Which, honestly, good on them.
That's metal as fuck, if you ask me. So they notice May that
Saul gets a good look at May, and he's like, "Hey, wait a minute, that tattoo wasn't on your forehead this morning."
Yeah. So all the witches freak out. They're like, "You've been spying on us. They're here to take the fucking kids." And then Endara has the fucking gall to be like, the Jedi do not take children, and like all the witches just burst out into laughter, right? Everyone just starts laughing. Like some of the Jedi are laughing, right? Because it's such a stupid fucking lie.
Also, one thing I want to note here, in Dara's fight with May in episode 1, she doesn't really know what's going on until like at the end, where she like brushes May's hair to the side and sees it. She's like, "Oh,
right, yeah,
that's what this is about."
Yeah. It ends up being, in retrospect, ends up being very significant.
Yeah.
So Saul, and remind you, I love Saul, but he did this. Takes his lightsaber off of his belt and hands it to a child, which is like a cop walking up to a gun, taking his gun out of his fucking holster, turning the safety off, and handing it to a fucking kid. And be like, isn't this fucking cool?
Yeah.
Not the best idea. But he hands her the lightsaber. He gives Osha the lightsaber, and he's like, hey, if you be a Jedi, you get to have a fucking lightsaber. Wouldn't that be rad?
Osha's like, ooh.
Yeah. Osha's like, fucking sold. I would like to be a Jedi.
Yes.
So Mother Anastasia immediately like possesses Tom and like sends him to the sunken place, right? Like his fucking eyes go black and shit. And she's like, look, if you want this sweet baby boy to get back in his right mind, you will fuck right off out of here. And Osha like protests. And she's like, oh, I want to take the Jedi test. I would like, this would be kind of cool. And Endara, out of all the shitty things she says in this episode, says you cannot deny the Jedi have the right to test potential Padawans, and leaves a very pregnant pause, and then says, with your permission, of course. Meaning, you
let us do this, or there are consequences.
Yeah, your cooperation would be nice, but is not required, right? And then Mother Anastasia is like, okay, fine, we'll test him. And then she said, we appreciate your cooperation. Wink. And then they walk out.
Yeah.
So Mother Anastasia meets with her advisors. Coral wants to go attack the Jedi.
Yeah.
She's like, let's go fucking fight. It'll be great. And Mother Anastasia is like, this is not a good idea because the Republic and the Jedi will just come down on us. And she, Coral was like, it's 4 fucking Jedi. No one will ever miss them. And she's like, do you not know anything about the Jedi?
There's way more than 4 Jedi.
Yeah. There are 4 of them there. And if they kill them, who's going to miss 4 Jedi, right? And
The rest of the Jedi.
yeah, they're like they'll all freak out and they'll all be here. Like they'll probably put a fucking temple here. Like it'll be crazy.
Yeah.
So Mother Anastasia decides that the girls can be tested, especially if Osha wants it. You know, she's like, okay. So we also find in the scene that Coral physically carried the children.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out that Mother Anastasia created them, which was kind of a huge fucking deal. Like, she did something, and it created a child.
Which that I'm presuming is the connection to Darth Plagueis you were talking about.
Yeah, because like this is the thing. Mother Anastasia has a skill that apparently Darth Plagueis ends up having at some point,
or something similar to it.
Yeah, so he either takes it from her or it may be Tenebrous if that's like the direction they're going, like he takes it from her, or she gives it to them, or there's some kind of connection between these witches and the Sith or something.
Could very well be.
Yeah. So they have like this old like wizened witch is like, here's an idea. Let's just have them fail the test on purpose, and everyone's like, oh,
yeah, okay,
that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So Mother Anastasia talks to the girls and like tells them how to fail, and she's like, okay, so like they're gonna ask you a question, whatever's in your heart, just say the fucking opposite. And May is like, great,
gotcha,
yeah,
no problem.
And May turns to Ocean, she's like, if they take you, I'll fucking stop them. And they
like, man, chill out.
Yeah.
Why are you like this?
So they argue, like the girls argue over whether or not the Jedi are bad, and Mother Anastasia is like, it's not about good or bad, like it's about power and who's allowed to use it. And like they kick May out because she's like getting all hot and bothered and shit. Mm-hmm. And then Mother Anastasia talks to Osha, and she's like, I want to be a fucking Jedi. And she's like, I know you do, but you're a fucking kid, and what you want is going to change like every 7 seconds, right? So like just try to think big picture here. And she's like, you know, I want to be a Jedi. So May makes Osha promise to lie on the test.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, fine, just leave me the fuck alone. Please, 3 minutes of privacy.
Yeah.
So they meet the Jedi at their ship. They test May first. While that's happening, Osha sees, like, Kalnaka's, like, working on his Harley or something.
Yeah.
And she, like, walks up and says hi, and they have, like, a cute little moment. And Kalnaka's like, hey, man, what's up? So she gets on the ship. She's hanging out with Tommen. And she's like, oh, it's a fucking cool light. Like, do I get a lightsaber? And he's like, yeah, I mean, after we teach you how to not kill yourself with it, you get to carry one around. And he takes a blood sample, which is a great callback to episode 1 because they did the same thing to Anakin.
Checking her M count.
Yeah. You can't say the M word.
Nope.
It's a bad word.
Not allowed.
So she does the exact same fucking test that Anakin does at the Jedi Temple in episode 1.
Yep.
Where he's got the view screen.
Yep. Away from you. It's facing me. I need you to tell me what's on the screen.
And she's just making shit up. Right? Yeah. She's like, it's a fucking dildo. And he's like, what? Now, Saul realizes what's happening. Mm-hmm. Right? Like almost immediately. So she's like, it's a fucking dildo. And it's like a cat. Mm-hmm. And he's like, that dildo's right. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly correct. What about the next one? She's like, it's a fucking ball gag. And he's like, yeah. Wow. The Force must be really powerful with you.
Yeah, you're great.
Yeah. And like the third one, she makes up a thing, and then
it's a mountain.
Yeah, and he's like, correct. And she's like, that was not correct. Knock that shit off. And he's like, well, how did you know it wasn't correct? And she's like, ah, shit.
Oh.
I've given myself away.
So I was like, all right, come here, child. Let's talk.
He's like, I get it. Your family doesn't want you to be separated. Like,
but you want to be a Jedi.
Right. So, like, you know, what do you want? And he tells the story about how he was discovered. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I was really scared, but then like I learned about like how many other kids there are with the Jedi. There are like thousands of them. And like in my mind, I'm like, that's not better. Like you're admitting to a crime you don't understand. But he's like, there are. But
it's what gets Osha's attention.
Right.
There's other kids.
Yeah. Right. Right. Because like they make a comment earlier.
She's only been hanging out with May for.
Right. It's like the only kid she's ever met. Yeah. Which, by the way, no wonder both of them are so fucking socially weird. They haven't been socialized with other fucking kids. All they've done is hang out with witches their entire life, right? Yeah. So he's like, you got to have the courage to say what you want. She's like, well, I want to be a Jedi, and he's like, well, now you got to have the courage to tell the truth. And then they redo the test, and they're like, do it fucking right now. So later, the girls and Mother Anastasia meet. May is livid that Osha didn't lie in her test. and they end up in a fist fight, and like they're like, May, go take a fucking walk before you try to kill your sister.
And Mother Coral physically drags her out of the room.
So Mother Anastasia tells Osha, she's like, you get to make a choice, and it would mean that you never see me again, but you can't make that decision based on fear. So like you need to think long and hard about whether, and she's like, yeah, I still want to be a Jedi. And she's like, okay, well,
okay,
I will discuss the situation with everyone and we will consider your wish. And she's like, so I don't get a choice? And she's like, hush, little child, have a spice cream. She's like, spice cream. So Osha is ready to go. She's in her bedroom. She's got her sketchbook. She's got her fucking backpack on. She's like, fuck these witches. I'm going to go be a Jedi. May shows up. And she's like, I won't let you leave. And Osha's like, what the fuck do you mean? She's like, I will fucking kill you. And Osha's like,
okay, that
I'm
went
sorry.
0 to 100 real fucking quick.
You fucking psycho. What did you say? And she's like, no, I'm going to fucking kill you. So she snatches her sketchbook and like gets out of the room and locks her in her room. She opens the sketchbook. She had drawings of like the Jedi crest and a lightsaber, which she was drawing this shit before she met Saul, by the way, which means that she had some kind of like vision or something, right?
Yeah.
She locks Osha in her room. She lights the book on fire, and then presumably, I'm not sure if this is actually true, presumably sets the door on fire, right?
Yeah.
And Osha's like, let me out. Like, dude, what is wrong with you, really? Like, this is so fucking crazy.
So, like, this part didn't make a ton of sense to me while I was watching.
The whole story doesn't make sense, and I think it's not supposed to.
Yeah, of the unreliable narrator gets me thinking.
There's a lot of stuff that just does not fit. Like, we'll talk about when we get there. We're about to get there pretty quick. So, Osha's able to like get a door, like it's like the trash chute or something or
something.
Yeah, and she's able to like slice a door panel, and she's able to escape.
Goes crawling through it.
Yeah. While she's escaping, we hear witches screaming for some reason, and they show this like the shot of their reactor that like powers the compound or something.
Yeah, that's blowing up.
For some reason, that's on fire.
Yeah.
And like that doesn't make sense to me either. But like at some point, that motherfucker explodes, right? And May and Osha end up on a bridge that's broken in the middle, and.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very symbolic.
Yeah, and everything's on fire and shit, and May wants her to jump, and Osha's like, where's mom? And she's like, she's fucking dead. And she's like, what did you do? Did you kill our mom too? Like, what the fuck, man?
May's like, what did you do?
Yeah, this is all your fault.
Yeah.
We could have been together forever.
But you had to leave and go to the Jedi.
Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. We could have breathed the same air. So May's side collapses. And she appears to fall to her death.
Fall into a bottomless pit.
Fucking Saul appears out of nowhere. Which, how did he know any of this was happening? Right? And he shows up right as Osha's side of the bridge collapses, and he's able to catch her, and he saves her. And he leads her out, and he walks past a pile of dead witch bodies, none of which died from burning. And I don't think they died from like a collapse. But
they were just kind of lying there.
Yeah,
there wasn't any rubble on top of them or anything.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Jedi killed them, by the way. Or I don't know. I don't think there's so much about this that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, there is something going on here.
So Osha passes out.
Well, he leads her past Mother Anastasia's body,
right.
And she's like screaming.
She doesn't want to leave.
Back, and Saul has to drag her away, and then she passes out.
Yeah. So she wakes up on the Jedi ship, and she's like getting medical care. Tommen, if you look really carefully in the background, he's standing there. He's already got his gnarly fucking injury on his face. Like, his face is tore up.
Yeah.
Saul is like, May started a fire, destroyed everything, and it killed everyone. And Saul seems so insanely upset by this that he's crying as much as Osha is. Like, he's so like affected by what happened, and it like even that is. Like, I get that he's probably very empathetic, but I don't know.
There is a reason that May in the present wants revenge on these Jedi.
Right.
We don't know the whole story yet.
Right. So he's like, we're going to Coruscant, and if you want, I'll train you as my Padawan. And he's like, I promise you'll never have to feel like this again. And she's like, that seems like a very hard to keep promise, but okay. um, Meanwhile, May, who is alive, obviously, returns to the Bunta tree because I think she expects to find Osha there. And she's not there. And she's like, well, fuck Osha, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck Osha and fuck the Jedi. So yeah, I think we're gonna find out that so my leading theory right now is that Coral started a fight.
Could be.
And based on the little snippet that I saw from the trailer for the little snapshot from the next episode, I think she probably possesses Kelnaka to attack Tommen. And I think it starts a fight, and I don't think it's a fight that the witches were able to finish. So I think things get out of control really quick. Like obviously they show up to get Osha while they're talking and stuff, and that conversation goes very, very badly. I think we're gonna learn that the fire probably isn't as much May's fault as she thinks it is, or as much as Osha thinks it is.
Do you think that there was any interaction by May's master in the present?
Oh yes, it took me a second to realize which one you were talking about. Yeah. First of all, yes. Second of all, I'm not entirely convinced it's a him. After seeing Indara in this episode, I'm starting to think that it very well could be her.
Indara's dead.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what she wanted us to see.
We saw May stab her in the heart.
I understand what we saw. I'm just saying there's something weird about Indara. It could just be that out of the 4 Jedi, she's the one that didn't really have much of a problem with what happens, which doesn't make her the Sith, but makes her kind of a bad person, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think my leading theory is that it's Khmer. Just because he's got the whole, he's trying very hard to be a doofus and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the Sith could have been involved there. I think that maybe there was some kind of partnership there to begin with that we don't know about, that we'll learn about. But yeah, I think we're going to find out that the point of view that we saw wasn't reliable, and that things happened way differently than we were led to believe, right?
Because we certainly don't know why the 4 Jedi involved were so interested in suppressing whatever it was, to the point where no one even knows in the present that Osha had a twin.
Right, yeah, because those records seem to be just gone, right? Like
as we know, if it doesn't exist in the Jedi archives, it doesn't exist.
Right, yeah. So yeah, I want to before we go here, I want to read some. I made a post earlier on Facebook asking for people's thoughts and theories and their what they thought of the episode. So I'm going to read a few of these because I always say I'll read them live and then I always forget. So this is me not forgetting. Jacob Lattimore says, I liked it. Fire emoji. Masterpiece of an episode. Scott says, it was good. They needed more time to flesh the mom characters out. May went from mildly petty to murderous really quick. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure she was talking to May. When she's like, I'll just fucking kill you. Because we know that...
We know there was a Jedi in the room, maybe?
Or there's weird sorcery happening, because we know that, Osha, older Osha... can see kid version of May, and she's not actually standing there, right?
Yeah.
So there could be some weird shit happening there. Also, something went on between the Jedi and the Covenant we don't know about yet. I agree. I think the bodies there, they weren't killed in the fire. I think the Jedi killed them. Chet says, theory on how it went down. Coral led an attack on the Jedi in order to justify retaliation. I absolutely am on board for this. Anastasia knew this and was killed before she could resolve the tension. May trapped Osha in her room on purpose. Torben, I think he meant Tommen. However, I think may have taken an injury from one of the witches, which resulted in a smaller counteroffensive skirmish with Coral's group of witches. Brighton said, go ahead.
I think we just don't know enough to say anything for certain right now.
Right. Our buddy Matt from Gremlin Squad says, I enjoyed it. I'm a simple man, though, and enjoy most things, LOL. Looking forward to finding out what actually happened. I think that's the one thing everyone agrees on, is that what we saw isn't actually what happened. As much as I want to know, I do enjoy the mystery of it right now. I'm all for not having all the answers and seeing it from one perspective, leaving questions to be answered. We clearly know that more went down than May setting a fire. I agree. It's also very, so we find out that, like, if you read the Rise of Kylo Ren novels, we're led to believe that Kylo Ren is who set the Jedi Temple on fire in The Last Jedi, but we find out that it wasn't him at all. It was
Snoke.
Yeah. It was Sidious via Snoke, but yeah. Michael says, I advocate for all Star Wars. Don't care what the content is, but the episode just felt like a big filler. Really hoping they ramp up in the next 5 episodes.
I don't think it was filler at all. I think it was filling. Well, if it was filling at all, it was filling in details that we need to know for what happens next.
Yeah. Ben says, I don't have a problem with the themes or lore stuff, but I honestly thought that aside from the music, the episode in particular suffered from really poor execution, especially the writing. I thought it was a real step down from the first 2 episodes in execution, which is a shame because the overall story and themes are interesting and worth exploring. I hope that's an acceptable take, that it's good but suffering in the execution of the idea. I mean, of course, it's like, sure. Look, if you come to us with a well-reasoned criticism other than there aren't enough white people and oh no, black lesbians, your opinion is always welcome here. But I do not suffer fucking bigots, right? So if you come to me and you're like, oh, fucking woke black lesbians, it's like, get the fuck out of my house. You're not welcome here.
Also cite your sources.
Yeah. Also, one more I'll read because we know April. She's a friend of ours. It's not good about it's not about good or evil. It's about power and who gets to wield it. I think this may be the key to understanding what's going on here. I don't think we have the whole story yet. Just Oshi's point of view, and we know how that works in Star Wars. Agreed. Mm-hmm. All right. I think we've gone on long enough about this.
I think so, yeah.
Next week, starting at 6 o'clock p.m. Central, will be the next episode of our podcast. It's going to be, it will also be remote, I think. Because, oh no, it's not happening on Wednesday. It's happening on Thursday, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll make sure to post. Yeah, I have a gig. And yeah. But it's going to be a long episode because episode 1 of House of the Dragon.
All of this and then House of the Dragon.
Yeah, and I'm stoked for it because I have been looking forward to the House of the Dragon release as much as Star Wars. Maybe even a little bit more.
Strong words.
Yes. So we'll be talking about that. We're going to have some Battlefront this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. If there are enough people to start the watch party on Discord here in about at 7, here in about 40 minutes or so,
40 minutes, yeah.
we'll do it. If not, it's not that big of a deal. So you can join us on Discord. It'll be in our general voice chat.
It'll be there.
Yeah.
You'll find it. It's very easy.
So I'll be streaming the episode. So you can just sit and watch with me and we'll discuss and everything. So anyway, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We hope to see you next week. And also on Sunday at 7 for 7:25-ish for Gungans and Dragons. Otherwise, I very much appreciate the chats and the support today. You guys take it easy, and we'll see you on the next one.